Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your favorite questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. I'm your favorite host, Gabe.
And I'm your other favorite host, Jeff.
We're going to answer your questions today. Now today, before we get into anything, today is a special episode. It is our 20th episode.
Woo!
And so we decided we are going to do a favorites episode.
Yes.
So all of the questions today, some of which were submitted by listeners, but most of which were just, thought up by us. We're going to be answering favorites. So like, what's your favorite, what's your favorite X, what's your favorite Y, so on. We'll get into what our favorites are as we go. But before we go any further, Jeff, I have a favorite question for you.
What's that?
How are you favorite doing today?
Out of all of my favorite questions, that's my favorite.
There you favorite go.
Okay.
So how are you doing?
Pretty good. Just got back from a little vacation. It was my 30th birthday.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether to bring that up.
Yes.
But happy birthday.
Yes, thank you.
Happy birthday from myself as well as all of our listeners, I hope. Maybe I can speak on behalf of them.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's
yeah, I know.
Getting old isn't fun anymore.
I know. See, when you're old like me, when you're the ripe old age of 31, you can look back and you can see all the folly that you took part in when you were back in your young halcyon days of 30.
Sure. Very good.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. As for me, it's pretty much just been another week. Been doing stuff around the house. We for anybody who is curious, today as we record this is Memorial Day.
Oh right, yes.
And we are. Let me ask you, Jeff. What is that? What is that glowing ball of fire out the window up in the sky? What is that ball of light? It came up.
Are you
not
referring
too long ago?
Are you referring to the sun?
Yes, I am. We typically record much later in the day.
Oh,
but because this is neither of us were working today, we decided to record a little earlier.
Right. Oh my goodness. I wasn't sure where you were going. I'm like, yeah, that's the sun, Gabe. Oh, right. Because there's usually the sun is not coming through the window when we record.
At my job, back when I used to work the morning shift, we would start work at like 4 a.m. And so, I would get up so early, and then it's all in like, we're all inside this giant factory. So like I would wake up when it's dark, and then I would go to work, and then I would get out at like 4 p.m. or whatever. But, I wouldn't see the sun for so long. And there was one day where I was working a different job than I usually do. I was in this different part of the plant. And then like through like a crack in the ceiling way off in the distance, suddenly this like beam of light hits me in the eye. I'm like, what is this fiery ball of light that is shooting beams at me? And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. It's morning. It's that's the sun.
That's what the sun looks like.
That's such an odd phenomenon to experience.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but now I work nights, so I wake up and the sun's almost going down.
There you go.
Yeah, anyway, but we're recording much earlier in the day, and then after we're done recording, people are coming over, and I'm grilling up some burgers.
Nice.
I'm, in fact, wearing a burger shirt.
He is.
At the moment.
Yes.
So, yeah. Hopefully we got a good day ahead of us, got a good podcast ahead of us.
Yes.
Going to have a lot of fun. All right. Jeff, pick up your favorite D20.
Oh, God, I got to get it out of this.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I put them all inside that little mimic-shaped dice bag.
Yeah, he's going to bite down on me.
Well, maybe he is, maybe he isn't.
All right. Well, this is probably unlucky dice.
Okay.
Let's see what I get. Yeah, that's definitely the unlucky dice. I got a 3. You keep setting up things where you want me to succeed.
Well, yeah.
But Gabe.
Okay, tell you what. A dragon informs you that it is opposite day, and he tells you to. I don't know. You get an item from the dragon's hoard.
The dragon's hoard. So Gabe, for us humans, Memorial Day is to celebrate, those who have passed in service of our country. For dragons, it's actually opposite day.
Oh, that's how it works, yeah. I guess.
It's they like to switch layers with the chromatic ones, like to switch layers with the metallic ones.
That's kind of interesting. That would be an interesting hook for an adventure. You encounter like a red dragon, but then oh no, it's actually a gold dragon. But here's the thing: when by the time you finish the quest, it's the next day.
Uh-oh.
And so it's actually a red dragon.
So and then you come back to turn into quest, and it's, oh, good goodness.
Yeah. All right, so we're doing something a little different for this. We are, instead of just bringing in, a listener-submitted item, instead, we are going to talk about our first question, which is, what is your favorite magic item? Mm-hmm. So, Jeff, would you like to go first?
Sure. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say this is necessarily my favorite, but it definitely comes up in my mind a lot whenever I think of magic items. It's the animated rope.
Okay.
It's something very simple, it's not too expensive. It's something you can get, you can afford early on in an adventure. And it's got 1,001 uses, even though it's only got like a couple little effects that it does. I want to say. I can't remember all the details off the top of my head. Plus, I haven't looked it up in the in 5th edition, so I'm not 100% sure if there's any like differences in 5th edition. But as far as I remember, it's you can set the rope to hang in a certain way so you can climb it, and it basically can stay there. And it's easier to get up, like if you fall down a pit or something, things like that. Or I think you can maybe do like a tightrope if you really wanted to.
Oh yeah, I think you can command it to like knot itself up so that it becomes like really easy to climb at the expense of length.
Yeah. And then I believe it also can be used to tie people up in a way. Like you can use it to kind of like entangle people. Although the check to get out of it isn't too hard. But like. In an early enough adventure, when you're able to afford it, like that, that would come in handy.
Yeah, that's it's a neat item, especially at low levels, because like you said, it's you could afford it so early on, and it's got so many uses. It's pretty much got a use for whatever you can come up with.
Yeah, one time I tried to use this to a ridiculous effect. Steve and I were fairly new to D&D. Well, I mean, I definitely was, and we were younger at the time, but I was trying to recreate Spider-Man.
Okay.
Yeah, we were like, let's make like epic level characters, because we had just gotten like the epic level handbook.
Sure.
And I think we had just gotten the psionics book too, so I was like, I'm gonna be like a monk scion. We were doing like anything we had involved psionics at the time.
Yeah.
I was gonna be like a monk scion or something, and like I gave him like a ridiculous amount of jump, or like I gave him like because I think we were like, if you start at this level, you get this much gold. So we're like, okay, shopping list. All right, boots of jumping plus whatever I can fit in there.
Yeah.
But one of the things I would do was the gloves of storing. I think they're called.
Yeah.
Gloves of storing, and in those gloves were animated ropes, so he could sling the web and he'd be able to swing around on it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty clever. That's not how I would do a Spider. I don't know how I would do a Spider-Man, but like I think that's a really cool idea.
Although I think the ropes were completely unnecessary because of the jump that this character had.
Yeah,
he could go miles.
Gotcha.
Like it was ridiculous. There, like we were just power hungry at the time.
Yeah,
we were just like, let's see how powerful we can get our characters.
Small tangent, but there is a third-party source book for 3rd edition, or 3.5, I think it was eventually updated to, called Beyond Monks. That was all about monks, and there were a whole bunch of like prestige classes in there for monks. There were feats for monks and so on, and there was one.
Did any of them make monk good?
In some ways. There were some really, really cool classes in there. Jay actually played a class that was in there for, like, I think one of his longest running characters was a class that was in there. Anyway, but one of the classes, I don't remember exactly how it articulated, but there was something that made them really, really good at jumping, like more so than monks already are.
Sure.
And I think I remember statting out a 20th level character at one point that had such high jump that without a running start, he could just, from a standing position, jump straight up 100 feet.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was like all he could do, though.
Right. I mean, it's like, look what I can do. And just jump up in the air.
Exactly.
And then the bad guys are just so impressed that they're like, well,
wow.
Obviously, I can't outdo that, so just go home. All right. So, Gabe, what is your favorite?
Well, I've already said what my favorite item is. The Sword of Kos.
Sure,
I mean,
Sword
maybe
of
that's
Kos.
cheating because that's an artifact.
It's
whatever.
still a magic item. It counts.
I guess. But aside from that, there's a lot of magic items I really like. A lot of magic items I've gotten a lot of use out of. But one that I think is just really, really cool and kind of goes a little bit along with what you were saying would be the Immovable Rod.
Yes, that's another good one.
I think it's a really cool item. Now, I do want to say a lot of people, they hear the name Immovable Rod and then they don't really bother to read the description. They're like, oh, okay, well, I'll use it to, I don't know, I'll put it in front of a dragon and then it'll kill the dragon because the dragon's going to keep running and nothing, whatever. A lot of people don't read. There is a way you can move an immovable rod.
Sure.
It's just very, very, very hard.
Okay.
There was, not to criticize the Hardy Dice friends, because they weren't getting as deeply into the rules, as I would. But there was an episode of Hardy Dice Friends where somebody sent in a question or something about the immovable rod. And this was pretty funny. So again, I'm not trying to rip on them or anything, but they were talking about a campaign where somebody had an immovable rod.
Uh-huh.
And then they activated it and then forgot about it. But the thing is, because the planet is moving, the planet just kind of zoomed away from it. And then every year it comes back around, and then there's this rod in space that when the planet gets close enough to it, the rod basically starts cutting through buildings, eventually starts cutting through the planet itself. And so their idea was for a campaign where like a group of adventurers have to get together to hit the button on the immovable rod to deactivate it. I think that's a hilarious idea, but again, it's not how the rules work.
Right, yeah. In concept, that is hilarious.
Yes.
And then also, if you really think about, well, the world that they're playing in is different from our own.
Definitely.
Going back to something we talked about, I think last episode, about trying to get real physics into the game.
Yeah.
But just to be nerdy, the rod staying in space, you probably wouldn't come back to it again if you're talking true relativity.
Sure.
Like it's gone. It's just no longer within reach because the sun is also moving around the center of the, of the galaxy, and the galaxy itself is also moving.
Yeah, there's actually really cool
at blinding speeds. So
yes.
I mean, like really, the second you activate an immovable rod, it's gone.
Bam!
It's gone.
It's gone. You better hope that the planet isn't moving in such a way that the immovable rod goes straight through you.
Right. Exactly. So obviously it doesn't work that way.
Yes. Then again, I would say, I don't know why I'm getting this physical on this, but
do it.
I would say that any kind of magic has to be in some way taking gravity into account.
Sure.
Because if not, so many magical effects, okay, let's say time travel. This is, not really magic, it's more science fiction, but like time travel, you're always like, oh, well, if you were to go a day in the past, you'd be out in space. Well,
yeah, I mean,
clearly gravity has some effect, because gravity has an effect on time.
Yeah, the gravity has effects on, lots of things.
So I've always had the opinion that like, if you were to time travel, clearly the time travel would travel with the gravity well of whatever it's with. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it would be functionally useless in everything. So anyway, that's how I rationalize that. I figure for an immovable rod to look like an immovable rod and not a rod that you push the button and then it zooms away at 1,000 miles per hour.
And then you stare off in the distance like this is a ripoff. Like
exactly. So for it to function as an immovable rod, it would have to be tied to gravity in some way. That is assuming that in your campaign that
there is gravity.
That you're on a planet that is moving through space.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, not all fantasy worlds and campaign settings involve an actual planet. You're on a plane. There could be flat Earths and stuff like that. Sure.
I've actually toyed with the idea of because I am writing fiction. I've toyed with the idea of the world in my fiction being a flat planet.
Sure.
In the end, I did ask on Reddit and such, like, what exactly would what would the physical implications be of a flat planet? And then it's all stuff I wouldn't ever want to bring into the story. So instead, I'm just being very vague about what the rest of the world is like. Like there's the world everybody knows about, like that part of the world. The whole planet is not colonized. Mm-hmm. If it is a planet, people have never been past a certain point.
Sure. Was it the Discworld series?
Okay.
With where the world turtle and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's pretty neat, and like they have and I like that in that series. Was it Terry Pratchett?
I think so. I've never read it, but I've heard of it.
Pretty good. I read the first book and I liked it a lot when I read it. Skylar's really into it.
Oh yeah,
she's got all the books. But
Jeff's fiance, by the way. I don't know if we've ever said her name on the podcast.
He goes into great description about like how that works.
Yeah.
Like not too like scientific description, but I mean like at the very least, like he goes into like describing like the differences between like you wouldn't have like a compass necessarily the same way you would on Earth. Like, you know, you like there's different directions. I can't remember all the details, but it's like, you know, there's, you know, inward and outward, you know, from like towards the middle of the disc and towards away from the disc. You know, I forget the terms for it, but I mean, like there's some cool ways to make a non-planet based world.
Sure. I guess my issue was just whether I want to make it clear that it is not a sphere, or just not address whether it's a sphere or not.
Sure.
Which I think the latter is probably a simpler thing.
I mean, yeah, I feel like people go back and forth on arguing on what's the better way to tell that part of the story. Yeah, it's like to whether leave it in mystery or to explain it in great detail, or let the player or the reader figure it out for themselves.
Sure.
Like the mystery behind like all the lore in Dark Souls. Like I feel that like the amount of people that go into trying to figure it out themselves, that is a much richer experience than just reading a book about it.
Sure.
There's ups and downs on that.
Yeah.
And we're very off course at this point.
Yes. So the immovable rod.
Yes.
The immovable rod, for anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's a rod that it's like a plain metal rod, although the picture in the Dungeon Master's Guide has like horses on it or something.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, so it's a plain metal rod that has a button on one end. You push the button and then it hangs in that spot. You can let go of it. It'll float in space.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move if weight is put on it. If you had two of them, you could, in theory, you could like climb up through space.
Yep.
Anywhere you want to. The only thing is like you can move it, but it takes a huge amount of force. You have to make like a really, really high strength check to move it like 5 feet.
Sure.
So people have proposed the ideas of like, oh, let's say there's a giant dragon charging at you.
Yep.
Just set up the immovable rod. You know, okay, I wouldn't make that like an instant kill or something. People have said like, oh, if you get swallowed by the Trask, just put the immovable rod there, and then when the Trask runs away, it'll tear through it or something.
Yeah, it'll tear through it, but how much damage is that going to do to the Trask?
Right.
Regenerate itself.
Well, non 5th edition.
Pre-5th edition.
Yeah. Anyway.
Have we talked about that?
No. If we ever bring up what is our least favorite monster, I think I might have an entry for that.
Okay.
I have some issues with the Trask, especially the 5th edition Trask. So, I mean, how much damage the immovable rod could do, I suppose that's up to the DM. I would encourage a DM not to allow a player to use it as like an instant kill thing, because not many creatures are able to travel at a speed which will kill them. Like,
sure.
It's possible, but it would be very hard for me to kill myself by just running into a wall. It's possible. I could like hit my head at the perfect wrong spot or whatever, but not many animals can or will travel at a speed that would kill them if they ran into a solid object.
Right.
So, you know.
And I feel like when people like think about that, like, oh yeah, obviously that'll do massive damage because it's an immovable object that they're and they got all that inertia and momentum behind them and everything. But like, think about when a fighter, like two fighter class characters are fighting each other. They're hitting each other with swords and not dying.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's a very good point.
Like, it's like, yeah, like if I got hit by a sword, I'd be down. I don't like even if it just grazed me, I'd be like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with this. So these aren't normal circumstances we're talking about.
Yeah.
These are like, heroic beings.
Right.
Like a player character isn't a normal human.
Right.
Or, well, if they're not human, then they're definitely not a normal human.
But like, hit points are not really a good representation of anything, really. Like,
sure.
I always see people say, oh, I think that the falling rules are unrealistic because a 5th level character could easily fall 100 feet and then just get up, dust himself off, and walk away. And my response to that is, yeah. How many 5th level characters do you know in real life?
Right.
The answer is 0. The average person in real life would have like 1 or 2 hit points. A 100-foot fall, which would average like 30 damage or something, would kill 99% of the people on Earth.
Yeah.
That's not unrealistic to me if an effective superhero can fall 100 feet and then get up and walk away.
I feel like the hit point system is a way to kind of like to explain plot armor.
I guess, yeah.
You know, things like you know, in a movie where like somebody gets shot several times and is fine the rest of the movie. Like there might be a scene where they go, you know, and then they wrap it up or something. They put like a white bandage on it with a pretty little bow, and then they're fine for the rest of the movie. Didn't even go to the hospital, they're fine.
Sure.
That's hit points.
Yeah. So yeah, hit points are an abstraction on purpose. But yeah, so the immovable rod, it's just a neat little item, like with the climbing rope or the animated rope. It's just you can, whatever you can think to do with it, that's how powerful it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know, its power is limited by your imagination.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that does it for
that'll do it for the quote unquote Dragon's Horde today. If anybody wanted to submit Dragon's Horde items or questions for us to discuss, Jeff, how would they do so?
Well, they could definitely do that by sending it to their favorite email address, which is at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
There you go. All right. Would you like to start us off with the next favorite question?
Sure. Gabe, what is your favorite monster?
I would have to say my favorite monster. Now, there's a lot of good monsters out there.
Sure.
I would probably say my favorite monster overall.
Mm-hmm.
It's a monster called the Displacer Beast.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes. The Displacer Beast, for anybody who doesn't know, I believe it's one of the few monsters that is copyrighted by Wizards of the Coast.
I think so.
That and Beholders and Mind Flayers,
yeah,
I think.
I think you're right.
But the Displacer Beast is, picture a very large, like a black leopard or a panther, or a black panther. But I believe they have 6 legs. I think that's not an important detail. So picture a very large black panther, but on its back, coming from its shoulder blades, are 2 very long tentacles. Mm-hmm. Each tentacle on the end has like a big diamond-shaped pad with like spikes and hooks on it.
Right.
So it has these really, really long tentacles it can like, you know, slash you with. But its biggest defining feature is that if you go to attack a Displacer Beast, you swing your sword at it, you swing directly at it, you're going to miss because it is not actually standing there.
Right.
It's standing a few feet to the right. They have this just natural ability they displace themselves like they displace themselves, but they are projecting an image of themselves a few feet away instead of where they are.
Right.
There's a funny Order of the Stick comic where there's 2 Displacer Beasts walking down the road and they're talking to each other, and every couple frames, one of them has to be like, no, I'm over here. But yeah, I love the Displacer Beast. I think it's such a cool, just a cool iconic monster.
Yeah.
And I especially love how in the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, the Cloak of Displacement is made from the hide of a Displacer Beast. You can see cool. It's got like the little tentacles hanging down.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
I'm not sure if I ever noticed that. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Displacer Beasts are really they're challenging, but they're not super high level. They're not necessarily, they're not gonna be a team killer, but they're a nice challenging encounter. Like they'll be memorable in a way that they'll be, that time that you couldn't hit the dang thing for 3 rounds or whatever. Right. But yeah, and they can be dangerous, and they usually go in packs or something, I think
so, something like that.
Yeah.
I think my first experience ever with Displacer Beasts was actually in a computer game. There's a computer game called Curse of the Azure Bonds.
Okay.
Which was an old there was this old line of D&D computer games back in the 80s. They were called like the gold box games because they all came in a gold box. And there's a random encounter you can have in that game where you fight some Displacer Beasts. And I think that was the first time I'd ever encountered them. And I don't know, the way they look, I think, is really cool. And then learning how the mechanics work behind it, I just think they're a really cool monster.
They're also an enemy in that D&D video game that we played.
In the Tower of Doom.
Yes, Tower of Doom, which I will someday eventually get around to uploading. Gabe and I played a couple D&D games and recorded it, and I'll be putting them up on YouTube sometime soon. But well, when I do, I'll have Gabe put it in the show notes or something. Sure,
so definitely. How about yourself, Jeff? What's your favorite monster?
I kind of go back and forth. There's one I want to say, but I think I'm going to save it for one of the later favorites that we have because it has to do with, it has to do with something else.
Okay.
But I think one of my other favorites is Umber Hulks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And another one of my favorites is Umber Hulks, and I don't know why exactly I like them so much. I mean, I like that they're just big hulking bugs.
Yeah.
I don't know, the intimidating thing about bugs is that they're all like creepy and crawly and stuff.
Yeah, they're spindly.
Yeah, like spiders and things like that, or like centipedes, like ugh. But like an Umber Hulk is just a big hulking, and it's just
this gigantic thing,
and he's got he's got a bug head, and then they can like burrow through ground really easily.
Yeah.
And don't they have they have confusion effects and stuff like that?
They have a confusing gaze. Yes.
They are my least favorite to to fight.
Yeah.
But I don't know, for some reason I've always liked their design. I've always liked their mechanics. I just don't like fighting them.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I like them, because they're a challenge. Yeah. Like anytime I come across them, I'm like, oh jeez, because the confusing gaze and everything, it just can ruin everyone's day.
Yeah.
Like just that alone can wipe a party.
I'm trying to think if I've ever fought an Umber Hulk. I think I might have fought an Umber Hulk once, maybe as Ichi or something. But yeah, they're definitely a neat monster. I've mentioned on the podcast before the game Dragon Dice, which was a collectible dice game, fantasy themed dice game that was made by the same people that made D&D back in the olden days. And there is an Umber Hulk die in that game, which I have one of. It's one of the rarer ones. It's by no means the rarest, but it's one of the rarer ones, and it's really cool. Yeah, on one side of the die, it's a 10-sided die. On one side, it's got a picture of the Umber Hulk's face.
Nice. Has
a confuse ability. It has some other stuff, but
cool.
Yeah. I always liked in 3rd edition in the dungeon, or in the monster manual, 3rd edition monster manual, it described the Umber Hulk's burrow ability. Rather than being that it is just burrowing.
Like it's digging, right?
Well, they described it as the Umber Hulk is just so freakishly strong that it can pass through stone as easily as light brush.
Nice.
So it's not that it's it's digging with its hands. No, it's just so strong that it is just going to walk straight through that stone wall. Yeah, it's going to leave a hole or whatever, but it's just going to stroll right through and wreck things up.
Yeah, it's just going to be all la-di-da. I always just picture it basically just melting through, through dirt and stone and everything.
Yeah. So. I want to say there's a point in the Shackled City adventure path, which we didn't get to, unfortunately, but there's a point where an Umber Hulk attacks the city. I won't say anything else about the circumstances around it, just in case we ever play it again, or just in case anybody out there plays.
I want to get through that campaign so bad at some point or another.
There's a really cool story behind it all.
I know there, and I'm pretty sure I've read the cliff notes of the story at one point in my life, and been yeah, that's really cool. I don't remember all the details. The only thing I could ever remember the last time we went through it, I was like, oh, there's going to be a beholder at some point, so I'm kind of ready for that to happen.
The big image, the big picture at the beginning of the first adventure is a picture of a beholder.
Right. Yeah. So it's not a huge spoiler, but it's just I gotta remember that happens. I don't remember if he attacks or not. I can't remember.
Yeah. All right. So Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is your favorite class?
My favorite class.
Yes.
Now, for this, I kind of have to specify between. I mean, my overall favorite class is hard to really say.
Sure.
I want to go for Ranger.
Okay.
For overall favorite class. They're versatile. They're skilled. They got good skills. Not quite as good as and. Most of these favorite answers I'm going to go off of are going to be from 3.5 because that's the edition I've had most experience with.
When I get to mine, I'll specify which editions I'm talking about.
Sure. So at the very least, 3.5, and then I look through 5th edition at Ranger. It's not bad either. But I like having the animal companion is nice because that's a nice little bonus there. You get your buddy, somebody to help out with. And different fighting styles can go with that. They got good skills not quite as good as the rogue, but still up there. They can still hide and sneak pretty well.
Yeah, in 3.5 they got hide in plain sight.
Yeah. And then they can either do two weapon fighting, or ranged ranged fighting. I think in 5th edition there's a few different fighting styles they can choose from.
Yeah, they can do like. So I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean they're fairly versatile. And then they have access to a small amount of spells, but some of them tie into their abilities pretty well. And then I love tracking.
Yeah,
tracking is such a cool cool thing that I never get to use, but I love the idea of it, like tracking an enemy or something like that. And then or like having like the favored terrain sort of thing is always neat.
Yeah,
like I think I'm in love with the ranger thematically, but in the actual game, it never works out. I feel like every time I make a ranger character, like the cool parts of the ranger, I never get to use.
I know what you mean. I've got a very similar class on the same lines.
So like in that way, that's my favorite themed character. My favorite martial character,
sure,
probably be like a paladin. I guess counts. Paladin does have some spells too, so it's not fully martial, but it's more like a mixed. But I've always liked Paladin because I like the whole I like being a tank and protecting people and that sort of thing, and like having a little bit of healing always helps. And then you get to wear like the big armor and all that, stuff like that, and then like you get to be all righteous and stuff, and that's fun. For spell casting class, Warlock.
Warlock is definitely good.
Yeah, Warlock.
I love the thematics of a warlock. I just think it's so cool.
Yeah, it's just, and it's not, you're not as versatile as a full wizard or a cleric or something. Like you don't have all those spells at your disposal, but you have a few spells, some of them unique to warlock.
Yeah.
And you can use them a lot more often. Some of them at will, some of them you can use, you have I think you have less slots or something like that. I'm talking. I think this is 5th edition.
Depending on the edition. In 5th edition, you have a lot fewer spell slots, but you get them back after a short rest instead of after a long rest. Right. So like if you take 3 or 4 short rests, you could easily have more uses of your spells per day than a sorcerer.
Right. So like you don't get as many spells, but you get to use them more often.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the theming behind them and everything, like the idea behind them is really cool in any edition, really, like because they're not all exactly the same. But I don't know, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, similar to you, I have a class that I love the idea of, but I've never been able to actually play one long enough for to really get a good experience, and also in general they're not very well looked upon.
Sure.
That would be the monk.
Okay, yeah.
I've always liked the idea of monks. Like I mentioned that I had a source book that was all about monks, and some of the monk options in there were really cool. But the thing is, monks they're not mechanically that great. Everybody kind of talks about how they're just not the most powerful class. They have the problem of not having a good enough focus, and if you want to make use of all the things that they get, you really have to spread yourself out thin.
Right.
They're not going to be as good of a damage dealer as the fighter.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't going to be as skilled as like a bard or a rogue.
Right.
They've got all these abilities that deal with enemy spellcasters, but how often are you going to fight enemy spellcasters? They're just kind of they're a mixed bag. They have a lot of really cool abilities, but the question is how often are those going to come up?
Right.
So yeah, it's hard to feel like monk is the best class. I love the thematics of it. I think it's such a cool class. I would love to play a monk for the long term.
Yeah,
I think that kind of opportunity would be really cool.
Yeah, So same with ranger. It's hard to feel like you're being useful.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're reaching your full potential as a part of the party.
Sure.
You're certain classes.
Yeah. As far as if I had to choose mechanically what my favorite class is, though, absolutely of all time, 4th edition fighter. If I could had a chance to play any class from any edition, whatever, 4th edition fighter I think is the epitome of what I'm looking for in a tactical fighting game.
Yeah, you've definitely described 4th edition fighter as one of
I love it so much. One of my favorite characters of all time was a 4th edition fighter. I loved the mechanics of it, and the entire reason I played that character was because I was in a one shot in a group where one of the guys was a fighter in 4th edition, and he was like, he was not doing very well at all. And he was like, 4th edition fighter sucks. This class is just terrible. And I thought to myself, that can't be right, can it? So I went and I looked up a guide on how to play an effective 4th edition fighter. And like, it opened my eyes. Once I saw how you should be playing a 4th edition fighter, that made me realize how you're supposed to be playing 4th edition in general.
Yeah.
And it like, my mind was blown. So I made this 4th edition fighter for the upcoming campaign we're going to be doing. And like, oh my goodness, it was one of the best experiences I ever had. I love playing a 4th edition fighter.
Yeah. And you're right. Yeah. Like that, it definitely teaches you how to play it, go into 4th edition. Cause like when you went in and described it to us, before we were started playing 4th edition a little while back, like it kind of helped me build my character. Cause I was like, okay, like it's, it's more about playing the field of battle, and like it's much more tactical and trying to there's different ways to get the enemies to attack you instead of your allies and things like that when you're trying to play the protector.
Yeah, I think the marking mechanic, which fighters make very good use out of, is such a good mechanic because it's an aggro mechanic, but it is in no way, like it makes perfect sense. It is in no way a compulsion. It's not, you have to attack me. No. It's, you can attack whoever you want. If you don't attack me, bad stuff's going to happen to you.
Right.
So then it forces the DM and therefore the monsters, it forces the monsters to make a difficult decision.
Yeah.
I can either attack the person I want to attack with a huge penalty or getting attacked by the fighter or whatever, or I can just attack the fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that you're forcing anything. You're just giving them a difficult decision. It is 100% up to them.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that is so, so awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that mechanic a lot.
Yeah. Like if it forced the enemy to always attack you, that would be a bad mechanic.
Yeah.
And
it could be you can usually take advantage of that.
Yeah. So I love the way they did it. It's one of the things I love about 4th edition.
Okay, Gabe. What was your favorite character that you've ever played?
So this is a tough one.
Uh-huh.
I have a few, and I'm not sure which one to talk about the most. So like, I mentioned I had this 4th edition fighter. His name was Artemis Red Sleeves. I guess I'll talk about him because I already kind of let me tell you what the 3 characters that I like the most.
Yeah.
4th edition fighter, Artemis Red Sleeves. I had 3rd edition barbarian, Ichi.
Sure.
And then I had a 3.5 artificer named Perth.
Oh, Perth.
Yeah. Which of those 3 should I talk about?
I'm gonna talk about Perth. I don't think we've discussed Perth.
I don't think so either. I don't want to talk about Ichi because I've talked about him elsewhere, and I'll talk about him again.
Get out of here, Ichi.
Yeah. Okay. That's not how he talked. So Perth was a 3rd edition Eberron artificer.
Mm-hmm.
When Eberron came out, Jay wanted to run an Eberron campaign,
mm-hmm.
so we all made Eberron characters. That's where you developed your love for Warforged.
Oh goodness, we'll get into those later.
Yes, and I have an idea of what who your favorite character is. But I made this artificer, and at first I don't really know what kind of an idea I had for like his personality other than just quirky. But I think the campaign really shaped the character as we went on. So I had this, kind of quirky character. He like had a big coat that always had tons and tons of stuff in every pocket. So like I would go through the player's handbook. I would look at the list of like mundane gear you can buy. I was like, oh, I'll have one of those. I would just go down the list. So I had all this stuff. So I was like a little short guy, but I just had this giant coat. So I looked like I weighed like 500 pounds because I just had this huge coat bulging with pockets. And so my character, he had an affinity for magical stuff.
Uh-huh.
He had an affinity for like Warforged, for mechanical stuff as well. He eventually, I think, he bought a junkyard or like rented out part of a junkyard or something. And he like built a hideout in the junkyard.
Okay. I think I remember that.
Yeah. And then, so he had like a big mechanical door that would like open up and he had, and anyway, as the campaign went on, one thing about this character, I don't think I would have worded it this way at the time, but after the fact, I've looked back on it and realized like this character was an atheist, which is in some editions of the game makes sense. In other editions, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
In the Eberron campaign, I think in the Eberron setting, I think it makes a bit of sense.
Sure.
He was a character that he didn't buy into all of these legends about stuff. Like, part of the campaign revolved around the 3 dragons that created the world or something.
Right,
there was Sybaris, Eberron, and Kyber.
Right.
And like, he didn't believe any of that stuff. There were all these like dragon marks that people had that gave them magical powers that they said were like from one of these 3 dragons. No, he didn't believe that. That's just some magical mutation, whatever. And so like, that was his attitude, was like, you know, I don't believe stuff until I've tested it, until, you know, I've done research on it and so on.
Sure.
And there was a point about halfway through the campaign, maybe a little less, where each of us found some sort of like an artifact that was seemingly made specifically for us. And I don't remember what anybody else's was actually, but Perth's was basically, it was a gun. Around the time I had seen the stats for guns in like one of the Dragon magazines that had come out. And so I told Jay about it. I was like, hey, I think it would fit this character who's very gadget oriented if he had a gun. And, you know, in Eberron, I think that makes a lot of sense. So he gave me one. Jay gave me one. He gave me this gun. And then the items we got were part of this like prophecy or something that our characters were supposedly a part of. And they were gifts given to us by Sybaris, supposedly. And again, that's something that my character did not buy into at all. He didn't believe in, you know, so many of these things. And then that really came as a shock when at one point in the campaign, he died and then came back from the dead. And I don't remember exactly what his experience was while he was dead. He had a free true res, so he came back immediately. But like, that shook him really, really greatly.
Right.
And then not only that, but shortly after, we realized that these items that we got weren't really gifts from Sybaris. We ourselves were the gifts from Sybaris. And so he realized, basically after he died and then came back from the dead, he started developing a Sybaris dragon mark, which are these like super duper rare things. They're this really, really powerful ability that you get. Yeah. And it manifests as this like magical tattoo on your body that for him, it started off small, but like started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it covered almost his entire body. But the thing is, because of who he was, he wouldn't tell anybody else about it.
Yeah.
He started like half his body was covered in bandages at one point. And then there was this like climactic battle where we were like on this airship or something. All these bad guys were around. And then he had to use his Sybaris dragon mark to create this like super powerful storm that like knocked all the airships out of the sky or whatever. And so in doing so, like the dragon mark on him started to burn, and it like burned off all the bandages and everything. And then it revealed to everybody else in the party that he had this huge, super powerful dragon mark.
Yeah, I do remember that part. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a big turning point at the end of the campaign where he had to come to terms with the fact that like whether all this stuff is based on legend or not, like there's something going on here. It's something that is bigger than him. And
right.
And that was something that wasn't something that he easily came to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely remember like the reveal of the dragon mark, because like I definitely had no idea.
That was something Jay and I had worked on
cool
for a while together.
Very good.
How about yourself? What was the favorite character you played?
Well, that's tough. That's a tough decision. All of the Warforged characters.
They all just kind of they merge into one.
Yeah,
in your mind.
They kind of really do in a way. But if I had to pick one, and this kind of ties into the next question too.
Okay.
So the next question is favorite character you never got a chance to play.
Sure.
So technically, I did play him, but I didn't get to play him for very long.
Yeah, you can definitely include characters that you didn't get to play long enough.
Yeah. So my favorite character that I've ever played, and the character that I also didn't really get a chance to fully play, is the last character I ever played, which was Crush.
Oh, yeah. Crush was such a cool character.
He's a 4th edition. Gabe let me play at Warforged, which was very nice of him. He knows how much I like them.
That's fine. I was able to do cool stuff with it in the story.
And that's part of the reason why I liked him so much, because we were able to fit him in the story in such a unique way, other than him just having Warforged be a thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there was a great war and there was Warforged. Here's one of them. No, sure. it was different. Like he was
a unique construct.
Yeah. And a unique construct that had been around a town long enough to where he was no longer like interesting. Yeah.
When we first were starting this campaign, Steve and I worked out that it's almost like in the movie Ted,
Sure.
Where Ted is a living teddy bear that was brought to life by a magical wish, which the world promptly freaks out about because teddy bears are not supposed to be walking around. This is a fairly realistic world. But so he comes to life, but that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now he's not new anymore. Like people know, oh, okay, that's that teddy bear that was on the news 20 years ago. Okay, what else is new?
Yeah, nothing else equally spectacular has happened, and it's just sort of like, well, that's just a thing that happened. There it is. Hey,
Yeah.
So we played it in that way, which I thought was pretty cool. Like I liked that. I liked that way of doing it. But he was the Warden class, 4th edition.
Yes, a different type of defender rather than the fighter.
I think it was in the primal. I think it was in the.
It was in Dungeon Master's Guide or Player's Handbook 2. I think
so. Yeah, where they added like the primal stuff.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to be a defender, and I like the idea of I always like the idea of like nature and stuff like that.
Yeah, he didn't want to be a fighter. I'm shaking my fist at him.
I was tempted. I was definitely tempted, but the Warden class had a thing to it where like there was like the different elements, and one of them was earth, and I thought it'd be really cool to have this unique warforge that was like kind of made of stone, and we were playing in Shackled City, which is basically inside the bowl of
a dormant volcano.
Yeah, and so like it was like made out of like volcanic glass and things like that, and like that'd be pretty cool. And so like all of his abilities go off of like earth and stone and things like that. So I really liked him mechanically, and I really liked the way that we made up his background and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't recall. Did I ever tell you what was eventually going to be revealed about him?
I don't know specifically, but we were definitely tying him into like the founder.
Yeah, Surabar Spellmason, the founder of Cauldron.
Yeah, so like having a connection with him, and then the war against like the demons or devils. I can't remember which.
Demons, I think.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell you what that is, or should I save it in case we ever?
I say save it for later. I might ask sooner than later, but
sure.
But for now, I'd say leave it as a mystery, just in case we ever tend to go back to that, or maybe you can like bring him in another adventure and like explain it that way or something. Who knows?
Gotcha.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you some of the ideas I didn't go with, because
sure.
when you, for anybody who is ever going to run Shackled City, one of the things that I really like about Shackled City is, especially if you buy the hardcover, there are these like little story-based traits that each player can choose from at the beginning of the campaign that sort of tie them into the campaign a little bit better. And there were a few of them that I think I had in mind for your character. If you wanted them, then you chose one of them. There were a few that I could have had your character have some sort of a reveal depending on which one you picked.
Uh-huh.
One of them that you could have picked was, because there was the first adventure dealt with the gnome city of Jadaroon.
Yeah.
If you had chosen the trait that was tied to Jadaroon, I would have had you be a gnomish creation,
right,
rather than what you were. So
yeah,
that's one thing I could have gone with.
Yeah, because you definitely you gave me a couple options. I was like, okay, all right, and I don't know, I like the one with the gnomish creation one, but like because I always remember Jadaroon from the last I think I've started playing this.
We've started it two or three times probably. Yeah.
So like I was like, oh, that'd be really neat, because then it would really tie me into the beginning of the game, which I guess in hindsight should have done, because then I would have gotten the reveal maybe a little bit sooner and would have done it before we stopped playing the campaign. But I think the more grander idea of me of him being used to protect people from demons and stuff like that.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think what I did have in mind for your character was better than the Jadaroon one would have been. I feel like the Jadaroon one would have kind of limited what I was able to do with it.
I think so. Like, yeah, but I'm happy the way it turned out, but I'm also sad that I didn't get to play it for as long. So that's both my favorite character I've played and the one that I didn't get to play.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite character that you didn't get a chance to play?
I've got a lot.
Sure.
I will.
I mean, there's definitely
I've even got a couple that I think would make for a fun story now, but I'll save them. Like, I'll give a little teaser here. I told you a few weeks ago before we started recording, I told you about the Shoulder.
Oh,
I won't talk about him today. I'll talk about him some other time.
Yeah, save that one.
But yeah, I've a character concept named the Shoulder that I would love to talk about sometime.
Just leave it at that.
But there's another character that I came up with this character a while ago, and I never actually, I never even got a chance to play it. But I would love to play in Pathfinder. There is a class called the Summoner that I think is a really, really cool class.
Okay.
It is like a spellcaster. It's a spellcaster. But rather than being a full spellcaster like a sorcerer or wizard, instead you are kind of like a 3rd edition bard spellcasting. So you have like not half progression like a paladin, but sort of like 3/4 progression.
Gotcha, yeah.
But the way that the class works is, in addition to your spells, you can summon an Eidolon. So you can summon this creature, this magical creature, that there's all these rules on like how you stat out what this creature is. It has its own hit points, it has its own skills, has its own feats and whatnot. And then you have a certain number of points that you can use to buy it abilities. You might buy it the ability to climb. You might buy an extra attack for it. So it has horns.
Cool.
You might buy a thing that makes it bigger. So you can make it large size instead of medium sized. And so each of these cost different numbers of points. You get more points as you level up. You can cast a spell that has like a costly material component to completely remake your Eidolon.
Okay, yeah.
But so you choose what stats it's going to have, and then what its appearance is completely up to you. And I love when a class says the appearance of this ability is completely up to you. In that monk source book that I had, one of the classes basically shoots energy blasts instead of using stunning fist, you get energy blasts.
Right. Yeah.
Which is actually something that the 5th edition monk can just do.
That's true.
I think, or at least one of the archetypes can.
I think so. Yeah.
But one of the things in there is that with these energy blasts, you choose what they look like, and I love that. That sentence just, man, it makes my mind go crazy.
When they put it into words like that like it like usually you can just do that anyway.
I do that anyway for everything anyway.
But there's always going to be the stickler, the rule lawyer who is like, it doesn't say that you can do that, or like the DM that says, well, that's not necessarily what I want you to have.
So when it explicitly is like, you can make this look however you want, I think that's like awesome. You just gave me the thumbs up. Yeah. So I had an idea for, let's say, okay, I don't know if I ever came up with a name for him. Let's call him Captain Jack.
Okay.
Captain Jack was the leader of a pirate ship. He was a pirate.
Okay.
In the Pathfinder world of Golarion, I think it's called. And so they're going along. His crew eventually mutinies. They kick him off the boat on some, deserted island. Very much like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Sure.
So he's stranded on this desert island, and he looks up in the sky and he prays in the Pathfinder world. There is a goddess of pirates. So he prays to the goddess of pirates, please, please, please send me a ship that I can use to take revenge on my mutinous crew. And so then let's say he has his telescope thing with him, his spyglass, whatever. Yeah. He has the spyglass with him.
Yeah.
And so he sees something way off in the distance. He pulls out a spyglass, and sure enough, way, way, way off in the distance, there's a ship, and it looks like a demonic pirate ship. This like pirate ship of the damned is like way off in the distance. It's getting closer. He's like waving to it. You can see like they're waving back. It's getting closer. It's getting closer. It's getting closer. And then something hits him in the leg. What the crap? He looks down. It wasn't really far away. It's just like 3 feet long. This tiny little pirate ship that is like just barely big enough for him to stand on.
Sure.
Floats up in the water and gets up to him, and well, I guess my wish was granted. So he hops on this, he like sits cross-legged on this tiny pirate ship, and then, onward, and then it goes on. And so the idea is that he is a summoner, that his Eidolon is a pirate ship.
Oh my goodness.
Now, one of the like types of Eidolon you can make is serpentine. So like the abilities it gets are based on the fact that it has like, it's this tall, it's this long, whatever. And then it has the ability to swim, and it has, I think, a climb speed. But so he has, I would have reskinned that to be a pirate ship. A very, very, very small pirate ship. When he's in combat, he sends the ship, and then the ship either fires teeny tiny little cannons, so melee attacks that are cannons, or he has the little tiny demonic crew of this pirate ship jump off and then like stab the person and then jump back on the ship. So like that's how I would describe the attacks of this pirate ship.
Okay.
And then I figured as he would progress in level, I would get the things that make it bigger. So
Sure.
instead of being like a 4-foot long pirate ship, now it's like a 10-foot long pirate ship. So he can like lay down on it if he wants to. He can just barely squeeze into the captain's quarters if he like, it's very uncomfortable and he's like cramped in there in like the fetal position, but he can just barely fit inside those captain's quarters. So I thought that was such a hilarious idea.
Sure, yeah.
To take something that's in the book, but then reskin it so that it is his pirate ship. And then over time, it would like I said, it would get bigger. It would eventually get huge sized. And then like maybe even he could make it so it could fly or something. It could fly through the air, whatever. But he would ride.
Ship.
Exactly. He would ride around on this demonic pirate ship.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yep, that'd be a good one. That'd be a good one.
But never got a chance to play it. How many Pathfinder games am I going to play in?
Right? Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that's a good one. Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is your favorite type of big bad evil guy? And this was actually submitted by Nicholas P. via email. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite big bad evil guy? Yeah,
this is a question he sent to us a while back.
Yeah, we've been this one, and there's another one that hopefully we'll get to that we've been tossing around for a while because we haven't been quite sure how to answer it.
But I'm not sure if this was the exact format of his original question. I think I
guess it was like, what type of big bad evil guy is your favorite?
Yeah, but I mean, like, if I had to be specific, and this ties more into the favorite monster thing, because there is a different one other than Umber Hulk that I have.
Sure.
Which is the Mind Flayer. Or more specifically, I like Illithids in general. Another favorite of mine is my favorite book is Lords of Madness.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good book.
And in Lords of Madness, they go into a more deeper description about a few of the aberrations, one of which is Illithids. Yeah. And I love Mind Flayers. I don't know. They're creepy. They're cool. They're mysterious. They're really powerful.
Yeah.
They take over people's minds and create thralls. They can eat brains, which is just ridiculous. Which is one of the most important things for one of my favorite characters, favorite villains I ever want to make, or I guess character, is in the Dungeon magazine. Mm-hmm. Is the Dungeon Compendium or the Dragon Compendium? Dragon Compendium. Sorry. So in the Dragon magazine, Dragon Compendium, they had a class called Savant, and I had a character once that was Savant, and it didn't work out too great, but still a neat class. So I wanted to have an Illithid who took the class Savant. Mm-hmm. So he was an Illithid Savant. And then there's another book, Savage Species, which is a 3.0 book, but we'll go into it.
It was laid enough in 3.0.
Yes.
Then. It's basically 3.5.
There was actually I want to say it was a prestige class or something.
I think so, yeah.
Something of the like that Illithids can take called the Illithid Savant. Which is it's basically a class where they can eat brains and then take the abilities of the brains that they eat. In short way. So he would be an Illithid Savant. Anyway,
there was somebody on a message board a long time ago was talking about in Eberron there's Warforged, and then there's a class called Warmind, and then there's a type of Warforged called Battleforged, and then there's a class called Battlemind, and they thought it would be funny to make a character that was a Warforged Battlemind, and then another character that was a Battleforged Warmind, and then have some sort of magical accident happen that combines the two of them, so they become a Warforged.
Sure. Well, that reminds me of there's the I think Reforged.
Yes.
So your Warforged can be Reforged, which makes them more human-like.
And then they can take that prestige class that makes them into a Warforged.
Right, yeah. And then they can take Warforged Juggernaut after that. Yes, so they've effectively gone 25 levels to get almost nothing. Yeah. Well, they still get some abilities, but to be ineffective.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, the main big bad evil guy, there's a villain in my head that I keep trying to come up with ways is he's basically an Illithid Savant, in the way that he takes the brains to gains the powers of others. Mm-hmm. But I like Illithids because they have they're very powerful, and then they can create thralls and stuff like that. So they have a lot of people under them working for them. So there's a lot of cool stuff to do with that as far as having a main evil character. But the specific one I have in mind is an Alhoon.
Okay. Which those are the Illithid Liches, if I'm not mistaken.
He is an Alhoon, but he is not an Illithid, he is an Ulithard,
Okay.
which is the larger.
They're like larger, more powerful Illithids.
They're large size. They have like bigger tentacles and like they're like they're not like any more monstrous than a regular. They're just bigger, and they have like 2 extra long tentacles, and they have some more powers to them. So
I think they are featured in Volo's Guide to Monsters.
Oh, cool.
I believe.
Awesome. With that, like, because like they're just all around more powerful, a little bit more imposing, but what I like about them is like they are unique, and the Illithid don't really like that.
Okay.
Like they're more powerful, so they're respected, but the Illithid don't really like that they're different, and like the elder brains that control all the Illithids don't like that either.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of this Ulithard kind of like going against the elder brains, thinking because he wants to be the most powerful. He's like, no, man, I deserve to be in charge here. Mm-hmm. So he goes against them, and he goes against all of Illithids who don't like undead.
Yeah.
He becomes a lich so that he can live forever. It's like because he just wants to gain as much power as he possibly can. Sends out all these thralls to collect powerful beings so that he can eat their brains and gain their power. And then through all that, like if gone against a party of adventurers or something, like, he could have these thralls going after this party of adventurers trying to like, steal their power. Basically, it's like these powerful adventurers, player characters are going to be powerful at some point or another. He's going to want that.
That could be a really cool idea for a campaign. Like maybe over the course of the campaign, the players are, let's say they're like, I don't know, hired to track down a bunch of villains over the course of the campaign. And then halfway through the campaign, those villains start disappearing.
Yeah.
And it's because this Alhoun is trying to get all of them together so that then he can take all of their power. And then maybe when they finally encounter him, he has all the powers that they were told these bad guys
you
would
might
have.
Fight these bad guys at some point, and then they get away, and then they disappear, and you can never find them again. And then later on, you fight him, and he's using that ability that guy had. Like, what?
Jeff, I kind of want to play this campaign now.
There's more to this idea that I have that I'm kind of saving, and I do want to bring it up to you because I actually want to tie it into something that we talked about, a couple things that you have talked about.
Okay.
But anyway, like it's this big bad evil that's in the background. He's controlling all these pawns and all this other stuff, but but all the while is becoming stronger and stronger.
Yeah, that's really
and
cool.
I mean, like, and then liches alone. Lich could be just a lich by itself is a big bad evil.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say for my favorite kind of big bad evil guy.
So go ahead.
So the main thing is that I think that although it's difficult to do, I think the best kind of villain is the kind of villain that keeps coming back.
Yes.
In D&D, that is really hard to do because you either have to have the villain always somehow escape. Oh, what a surprise. He has a thing that teleports him away or something. You always have to come up with some kind of lame excuse for how he gets away every time, which, that's if you can do that well, I guess all the power to you. So you can either have him always get away, or you have to have it so that he is more powerful than the players, yet somehow doesn't kill them.
Right.
Like if he beats them up and then, oh, you're not worth my time, and then walks away. That maybe works once.
Yeah.
No villain worth his salt is going to beat up the heroes and then leave them a second time. You know what I mean?
Right, because like if they come back a second time, that's like, okay, obviously these guys are going to be in a problem. I should just kill them.
Exactly. It's hard to rationalize something else. So it's hard to do a recurring villain in D&D, but if you can do it, it's really cool. And so one of the ways to do that is with a lich.
Yeah.
In the Eberron campaign, this is the Eberron episode.
Yeah.
Jay was running it, and he wanted Steve's character, who was like a noble. He wants Steve's character to have like a political rival.
Oh, right.
And he was his political rival for a little while, and then eventually started being like an actual rival. Like he would start attacking us, and then we killed him. And then, somehow he comes back. And then he came back again. And then he came back again. It turned out he was a lich. And Jay never bothered to give him a name. Or at least I think he did, but then he forgot what the name was.
That sounds right.
By about the midpoint of the campaign, instead, this bad guy's name was Won't Die.
Won't Die.
Because he just wouldn't die.
I forgot forgot about that.
So anyway, I think that a lich, provides a good explanation for how the bad guy keeps coming back.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Now, of course, you possibly run into the problem of like if the players are fighting him and killing him multiple times, you do then have to worry about how to keep the players scared of him.
Sure.
Because a recurring villain isn't as effective if it's a nuisance.
Yeah.
Like, he's back again. All right, let's kill him and then let's go on our way. You want your players to actually be afraid of him and like, oh crap, he's back.
Yeah.
So that can be very difficult to do. But if you can do it, and you can do it with a lich by just having the lich get more powerful each time or whatever.
Sure.
But I just think that liches are a really, really good way to do that. And they're a terrifying thing. Because the more you know about liches, the more terrified of them you should be. Because if you kill one, he's going to come back unless we find his phylactery.
Right.
Which, if he's a good lich, is not going to be somewhere you can get to it.
Exactly. It's going to be like really far away or highly protected or,
Yeah. So I've just always liked the idea of a lich. I think it's really cool. So that type of bad guy, really any kind of recurring villain, I think is really cool. But like a lich in particular, I think is a really good manifestation of that.
Yep. And then there's plenty of other like types of monsters that can become liches and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That like Dracoliches and things like that. So
yeah,
liches are definitely a good way.
Definitely a good one.
All right, next one is Gabe. What is your favorite kind of quest or adventure?
And this one is once again from Nicholas P. via email.
Yes.
This one is another one that it's hard to answer.
Yeah.
I can list like what my favorite adventures are. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe that might help. One adventure that I really like, for such an Eberron heavy campaign or for an Eberron heavy
episode.
Yeah. This is our first mention of the Age of Worms. This one, the first adventure that the Whispering Cairn, I think is a very, very good adventure. It's very well balanced. It's a good low level adventure too, which is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Because with low level adventures, you have to walk the line between being too difficult or too easy, too combat heavy or too roleplay heavy.
Yeah.
And so I think Whispering Cairn does a really good job of that.
Yeah, it was definitely a good balance.
Yeah, the players start off in this crappy little town. Yeah. It's a mining town. Everybody's poor, whatever. And then they find out that there's like some cave or something. There's a rival group of adventurers that are going to investigate one of a few caves because there's supposedly something out there. And then the players think, oh, well, let's go look at this other cave before the adventurers get there. So they go to this other cave. They go to this cave, and then there's like this big cave complex. There's like puzzles. There's like magic items to find. There's locked doors. There's swarms. There's all sorts of like fun dungeony stuff. And then you go through most of the dungeon. You get to a locked door. And the only way to get to the other side of the locked door is that ghost shows up. And the ghost says, I can get you through this locked door, but you have to go find my bones and bury them.
Right.
And so then the players, at this point, Jay was like, okay, yeah, we do it. We come back. Now what happens? And I was like, no, you got to go on that part of the adventure. So then in order to find the bones, you have to go to like, there's this group of thugs in town that supposedly did something with the bones or whatever. So you encounter them. You have to beat them up and get them to tell you who hired them. And then the guy that hired them, who now has the bones because he's a necromancer, is this necromancer living in this tower. You go and you encounter him. You beat him up. But then it turns out that in his lab, he has a jar with a green worm in it. And then that green worm is the catalyst for the whole rest of the adventure path. But for this adventure, you get the bones from that guy, you take them, you bury them, the ghost lets you through the door, and then you get like a special treasure at the end, and then you go on. Yeah. I just think it's a really, really well-balanced adventure. I think it's really well-paced. Mm-hmm. It's really well put together. It's just so good. I love a good dungeon crawl. And that's exactly what the Whispering Cairn is.
I'm going to have to say this is probably my favorite as well. I'm not trying to cheat or anything.
Sure, that's
not
fine.
trying to copy off you, but no, it's I haven't played too many different campaigns and adventures, but this one definitely stands out. And like you said, it's got a good dungeon crawl in it, but then it's got a nice mix of a bunch of other stuff. There's a little bit of a goose chase, with the bones, and then there's the twist. There's a twist that like, oh, it was a necromancer guy, and then there's the hook at the end where you brings you around to the rest of the campaign. Like it's got a nice little blend of everything, and I don't know. It's definitely something that it's an adventure that sucks you in. It's a low-level adventure that draws you into the game, which is what a low-level adventure should do.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be like, oh, this is going to be a lot of talking, huh? Or like, oh, this is going to be nothing but battles, huh? Like it's got a little bit of everything.
So that's the thing. Like the Shackle City adventure path started with Life's Bazaar was the name of the first adventure of that, where you go into the gnome city of Jadaroon. I think that is also a good adventure, but it is just dungeon.
Yeah.
Like there is a little bit of role playing at the beginning. There's like finding the dungeon and then, getting in there. That there is some fun to be had in that.
Right. There's like the little riddle and stuff. So like
there's a riddle, and then like there's the encounter you guys had with the keymaker guy.
Oh, right.
And I think that's all good, but just so much of the adventure is just dungeon. Then when you finish the first dungeon, there's a second dungeon you have to go to.
Oh, right.
And then that dungeon is just more dungeon and more dungeon. It's just encounter after encounter. And so I think that one is paced a lot more poorly than the Whispering Cairn. I think the Whispering Cairn is just like, mwah, so good. Now, just like types of adventures I like, I've mentioned in a previous episode, I love mysteries. Like if it's a murder mystery, man, sign me up.
Sure, yeah.
I love haunted houses, man. Haunted house, double thumbs up. I'll just very, very briefly talk about, there was a Pathfinder adventure, the very first Pathfinder adventure path, the Rise of the Rune Lords. It was before Pathfinder was its own edition of the game.
Okay.
When Paizo was still making stuff for Wizards.
Yeah.
The second adventure of that was both a murder mystery and a haunted house story. And it was called the Skinsaw Murders. I think that was such a great adventure, but it's kind of like it involves a lot of stuff from other, like the previous adventure in the path. I don't think it's quite as good as the Whispering Cairn, but it's also, it's more playing to my sensibilities as a player.
Sure.
So that's that type of adventure I think is my favorite.
Yeah.
So I think just to round us out, one more question.
Oh, yeah.
And this would be, for both of us, Jeff, what is your favorite quote said at the gaming table?
Okay.
And just a little disclaimer, because I'm pretty sure I know what, some of the stuff Jeff's going to say and some of what I'm going to say. This part is going to have some profanity, so I will bleep it out, but just a heads up.
Okay. So I have two in mind.
Okay, as do I.
Okay. So I'll get to the profanity one in a second.
Okay.
The first one I'm thinking of is, so this is at the end. This is at the end of the Age of Words campaign. Ding, and Steven's character. I want to say like he had a sister who passed away at the as part of his background.
Yeah.
And like through some magical means at the very end of the campaign, he was able to communicate with her.
Yes.
Just to for some like closure thing for the characters.
That was a very, very touching part of the session. Yeah.
Like it was very nice. It was so like and like this is very late in the night. We're just finishing
it was
up.
like 5 in the morning.
5 in the morning, and we're all kind of like really drowsy, but we wanted to get through this because it was the end of the campaign. It was exciting, And so it's Gabe was acting out the part of Steven's character's sister, Bones' sister.
Yeah.
And something along the lines of like gave him a gift of like it was like a necklace or something.
Yeah.
And then she said something along the lines of like this, like I'll give you this when you wear it, you'll feel my love.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And Steven's character Bones says like, "Oh, I already feel your love," but he put it on anywhere. And it was very sweet and touching.
Yeah.
And then me, in a very sleepy state, sat up and said, "The effects don't stack." Now, like. No, I don't feel super great about using my own quote.
It's fine,
which is why I want to bring up the other one. But I do remember that, and thinking of what a ridiculous idea that is, that the effects of love don't stack. Of course they stack.
Sure.
But anyway, okay. So love doesn't stack.
Yes. I'll do one of mine.
Yes, go for it.
And this one is going to have some profanity. My other one I think is a good closer. For the episode. Sure. So for this one, I'll give you a little bit of context after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
This was an interaction between Chris, who we've talked about many times, real Chris, as well as my childhood friend Nick, who passed away a couple years ago, but played D&D with me for several years.
Yeah.
And so we were playing a game that Chris was DMing, and Nick said to Chris, Is this tree more demonic looking? At which point Chris replied, Nick, it's made of fucking bodies.
So it was a tree made of bodies.
Yes. Should I give context for this? Basically, we came across this giant tree that was made out of bodies. Thinking 300, although this was before 300 came out, I think. So like the bad guys had killed a bunch of people and then arranged their body in the form of a tree.
Sure.
And Nick asked if it was demonic looking.
Does this look demonic to you? It's made of bodies. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. So this next one is from the Eberron campaign.
Yep.
And this was there was some ritual going on. I can't remember. There was like, I think there was something on Baelor or something like that.
Yeah, in Eberron there's this, one of the deities is called the Silver Flame, and the idea is that it's like this lawful good thing, but there's a twinge of evil hidden somewhere in this divine power. And so I think like the story was that like there was this paladin who like sacrificed himself to kill a demon, but like part of the demon lives on in his legacy or something.
Sure.
And so I think these bad guys were trying to they were trying to bring that demon back to life. Or
right.
something.
So yeah, there was a ritual, and they were going to have sacrifices, and these were virgin sacrifices.
Yes.
My character was a paladin, but he had the leadership feat, which gave him a cohort. Cohort was he was like a monk. Sacred Fist, I think it was. He was a monk
I think
cleric.
He was.
Yeah,
yes.
he was a Sacred Fist.
Yes. And because of Jeff's propensity to not come up with names in a timely manner, Jeff's cohort's character's name was
New Guy. Spelled like NUEGUI or something like that. Oh my goodness. Well, my main character's name was Walking Stick because I didn't have a name. Yes. Your character came up with the name by looking at his sheet.
Jay gave you a name because your character used a scythe. So Jay was like, people call you Grim.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, when I met you, because my character was quirky, he was like, nope, that's not what I'm going to call you. And I looked at my character sheet. I'm going to call you Walking Stick.
Yeah.
And then I did it enough. I kept at it. I did not give up. I was persistent enough that eventually that became your name.
Yeah, that's effectively that character's name, Walking Stick and New.
Yep.
But anyway, New had a few abilities, one of which was Spring Attack.
Yeah.
And so thinking like, okay, he's human. The virgin sacrifices are human.
It's dependent on the fact that they are virgins.
It's dependent on the fact that they are virgins, and stopping their ritual was very important. We didn't want this to happen.
Everybody would die if this ritual was not stopped.
Right. Jay, could I maybe like use like Spring Attack and like jump in and deflower her and then jump back out? To which Jay replied, "No, Jeff, you cannot Spring Attack a fuck."
So good. I love it.
That
has been one of my favorite gaming quotes for so long.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a classic.
And then to end this out, I was running the Shackled City, actually. Mm-hmm. I was running Shackled City in Tennessee. And there was a point, the context for this isn't really very necessary. I think the quote will stand for itself. There was a point where one of the players at the very end of the session, will the halfling fit in the bear suit with me? And my response was, yeah, sure. To which he then said, all right, guys, this is about to get weird. All right. I think that will do it for today. Spoiler alert, I never found out what it was he had planned.
Didn't the campaign end and then you guys never played again?
That was the end of the session, and I was like, okay, hang on. All right, that's awesome. Let's end on that note. We will figure out what that was next time. And then the next time we had to cancel the game, and then it was like Christmas. It was like the end of the year, so it was Christmas. So we didn't play for a few weeks, and by the time we got back together, that player was like, I have no clue what my plan was. I don't remember what it was. And then we only played another couple sessions after that. Such a shame, because that's such a good quote. Anyway, so to submit items and questions, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, or to download the episode, go to our blog at interpartyconflict.blogspot.com. Find our Facebook page, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict for weekly discussion questions from me. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, until next time, let's get things a little weird.
There you go.